hear it and me responding. Blah blah blah. Let's begin.
We're gonna post this.
On YouTube, on the Facebook group, not YouTube.
We're gonna tell me.
Yeah, I'll tag all of you.
So can you answer asking questions?
Alright, so let's create a new document. Just in case you weren't sure of the artboard tool.
So should we watch your should
Well, either way, you will see what I'm doing. Yeah, but I didn't want to be so, crowded and noisy and whatnot. I'd rather you try to hear me and stuff. Well, true. It's something I'll do from now on.
Consider.
Now, new document, going through Illustrator really quick. Right now you can see it asks you a number of artboards. And right now we have one. If I were to put two, and you can see what how they react in terms of beside each other, above each other, right beside, etc. How many columns, how many rows? 2 columns. 1, 2. Because there's only 2. And spacing, how much space between each artboard? 2 and 20. So we have a few things to cover today. Offset, gradients, transparency, 3D blending tool, symbols, blending modes, pathfinder, and masking. We might not do it in that particular order, but as we do them, I'll just call them out. So first things first, let's create just 2 artboards for now. We'll keep adding more as we go along. So here we are. Now I have 2 artboards here. Now you're pretty much used to seeing one artboard because essentially it's one box. And essentially when you click your art... Why?
Wow.
Why, Illustrator? Why? Give me a second. We are back and live, etc. Have a seat.
You sure? Can you check?
Yeah, no, I'm not gonna check. So if I check now, it's gonna pop up the thing. And all right, moving on. So first things first. This tutorial essentially, hopefully you are familiar with the pen tool because Illustrator typically uses the pen tool a lot, if not excessively. Right? So some of the few things that we're gonna cover today, as we said before, are those things that we have. So the first things first, we're going to look at the offset and then we're going to look at gradients. So typically when you're creating a path in Illustrator, it's in, right, for now I'm just going to take an example, a square. And typically the reason why your square is black and white is because your fill color is white, your stroke color is black. We can always change those. Press red for this and I'm going to change the this black to orange or something that's not red. Right? Now you can't really see the stroke too much because the stroke size is currently at 1 point. Right? I put that 16 so we can see better. Now when it comes to offset, we just type it here. Offset. Right, so looking at the offset. Now offset has both positive and negative stuff. Right? Now if I do the offset right now like this, what would happen is that it would offset it a couple pixels depending outside or inside. So if we look here inside the object, it's an object, we have the path. Path has the option to offset path, right? And if you can see here, you're not going to see anything, but if we hit preview, it says offset by 10 pixels. If I keep increasing this, you can see I can offset the path more, positive value, or if I go negative, it'll go inside. Now this comes in handy in certain occasions when you want a particular effect or you want to create like a border or some sort of a style with it. When you press OK now, you'll see this path and that. They're now 2 separate paths, and if we look in the layers, you will see one path, another path. The word offset is there, just for the sake of being there. Right? So that's an example of a negative offset. Right? If we wanted a positive offset, and I'm going to use a different path this time. I'm going to draw my own path using the pen tool. So if I take this shape right here and go something like that, it's sort of like a melon.
It's a banana.
Right, it's a banana
A jelly bean.
or a jelly bean or something. Right, so if we're going to do an offset on this, I'm going to show you a positive one. So I'm going to plus over here, arrow and arrow. So positive one, I'm going to put one here, and I'm going to copy this holding Alt just like in Photoshop, and just dragging it down, and simply just changing this to a negative. Let's show an example of a positive offset versus a negative offset. So this is going to be the original right here. Positive up here, negative down there. Original right here. So I'm just going to copy these two. Alt, holding Alt and dragging. You'll see that duplicate icon. So if I do a positive offset on this, and let me just change the size of this stroke, and this one to 5, we will have 1, 2. Now for this one, as before, object, path, offset, path, we can preview it just to see what we want, and if you see negative 56, you can barely see anything. But if we, it's like a white smile or something. So positive goes, as we say, outside. Negative, on the other hand, I will go back to the same option again, object, path, offset path, and for a negative value this time in a preview setting, you'll get something, well, offset is currently 10. Using the arrow keys to go down, it'll just carry it in to make it small. So the positive offset, your original, and your negative offset, right? So let's move on to the next artboard, shall we? So we just covered offset a while ago. Now moving over here, and we will cover gradients, right? Take off what? Oh yeah. Thank you, Craig. Jingor. Moving on. So we just did offset. Everybody's comfortable with offsets? You can see the application of it. You have several different things you can do with it. Now let's use some gradients. And after gradients, I'm going to show you blending. Right? Someone's borrowed this word here. So gradients. Now, as was previously discussed, when it comes to gradients, a gradient is pretty much the transition between two or more colors. And in Illustrator, you have pretty much, I think, two gradient options available. One is the linear gradient, which gives you a directional gradient. And the other one is a radial gradient, which gives you a round gradient going from a circle inside to an outer circle. Right? Now you have your gradient options over on the right side, right here. Gradient. But if for any reason you don't see it, you can always go to Window and choose the word gradient, which will then pop it up right there. Now by default, for any object, any at all, sorry, right, I'm going to draw a leaf. Just a simple leaf. Or a potato chip. This is a horrible leaf. We're not using that. One, click off that point right there. Carry it around here. Just a little path tutorial as well. So I've just created a path there, but if I want this part to curve down, with the path selected, you will see a plus sign there, right? And when you see the plus sign, you can actually click and add to your path another node, and you can edit that node by probably just dragging it down. And if you want to, you can always go to the direct selection tool to control the direction of your tangent, giving you a more leaf-tacular look. And if for some reason you want this pointed edge right here to be curvy, you can always convert that to a curved handle, right? Which gives you something more like that. So if it was pointed before and you want it to be curved, let me undo right now, pointy, or better yet, let me do this. Point, 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 point. Now if I want it to be curvy, click on this, and I can choose convert here, which changes the handles, giving you a curve. Right? If for any reason you wanted a more curvy something, you actually select the points individually. That's how that works, and then you can actually just get a more rounded look. Right? So let's create the leaf now. This doesn't look much like a leaf at all, right? Because a leaf isn't black unless you burn it with like sunlight. So here's what we do. We set the base color. And I'm going to show you two different ways you can achieve gradients. So I'm going to choose here. You can always edit your gradient color like so. Well, not your gradient. Currently it's a solid color. Right? Now the next part of the leaf, there's another part to this leaf thing. So I'm going to draw the other part of it. Something like that, and carry it back around like so. And probably just change the color a bit, so you can see like a visible difference. Something like that. Doesn't look very much. Well, you can't see too much on the screen, but I'm just gonna carry it up a bit.
Yeah.
That's gross.
That's worse.
This is hideous, but that's besides the point. But to get the whole gradient look now, right? For instance, let's say we want down here to be darker. I'll just edit this. Oh, I don't need to. See, because that's not affecting this.
It's affecting what they were saying.
No, it's a logo. Ah, curse this leaf. Let's make a simple leaf. So I'm just going to do a really simple leaf now. So let's use this gradient here. So to get the gradient, and by the way, gradients use, well, there's different ways to do the gradient, but typically when your gradient starts out, it uses your default gradient, which is usually black and white. Or if for any reason you want to change your solid color to a gradient, you can always go over to the fill color, and below it you will see three options. The middle one will give you a gradient, which brings up your gradient panel. Now from white to black, it's pretty lame, right? And actually, if you wanted to change it, you'd have to double click on this. What you'll notice is that it just gives you black and white, and only your swatches, right? But if you wanted to change it from just black and white, you have to go over to the grayscale, which is by default. I don't know why, but you can always change to RGB, HSB, CMYK. I'll just stick with the RGB, right? Red, green, blue. And over here I need to do the same thing again to make it know that both colors are going to be, well, colored. So here I can take this green from here and this other green, a darker green, right? And if you can't see too clearly, it's like this. Now here's the other part to it. To edit the gradients, you have your gradient tool, which you can actually use to pretty much select the object or path and manipulate the gradient. Over here you will see the little slider, and you see as we move it over here, it moves over here as well, right? So you can always play around with those to get your gradient to do what you want your gradient to do, or if you want to stick more to the left, you can stick more to the left or right, you can. Yes, you can add a third color to the gradient. Let's add another color to the gradient, just like we did in Photoshop one time. You just click and the box shows up, and you can always just choose another one. And if we want to change the direction of our gradient, we could always rotate this, right? Or we can just draw on the gradient like this. Bending the gradient, as in make it wavy. No, you can't. Not this way. That's where we get the blending part to kind of form. So if I were to play around with this, I'm just gonna make this leaf look more leafy. That's bad, right? And let's say I like the way this leaf looks. It's not perfect, but I like it. Same gradient tool, just gonna fix it up a little bit, like so. We have a lighter type at the top and one down here, bottom. Now, we're still in the gradients part, but a question asked, how can we get our gradient to curve a certain way we want it to curve, right? See, this is where the blending tool comes into play. Over here on the left side, you have a mesh gradient tool, or what they sometimes call the blending tool, right? And you can see it over here beside the gradient tool. What you can do? No, actually I should show you the mesh gradient first, then the blending tool. There we go. So here I'm creating an angle, and it gives me something like this, like so. Right now it just turned black a while ago, which is fine. What I can do is on this same node here, I'm going to change my color from black. And the thing about this thing is that the same mesh gradient tool, RGB, you actually add colors based on the points. RGB again, isn't it? So I can add a point there, a point here. I can go again and click on my mesh gradient and say I want something here, and I want that to be green. I want a color here. I want it to be more yellowish.
Okay.
And it kind of transitions itself into something. And you can do that and add something else. Right? So we can actually go ahead and do something like that. And you get a mesh gradient. But even with this though, you have something, a specified amount of steps for it to kind of transition out well. Because it's taking not only just a solid color, but it's transitioning that solid color into another bunch of colors that make it look like a gradient. Does that make sense? So if you want to add another point to it, you just click on the mesh gradient, you choose the part you want to add it. It kind of contours itself wherever, but you can always take your direct path, direct selection tool, and move this wherever you want to move it, contour it how you want to contour, do whatever you want with it. Almost like 3D, but not. Right? So we can always just play around with these settings here. This is black or gray. You can always buff it up, carry these up a bit, change a few of them to the same color if you want to. Right? And if I felt like it, I could probably add like a nice glossy gradient. Let me show you what I mean. I'm going to take this same shape here. I'm just going to do this, carry this around like so, stop it there, and this is just a regular path. I'm just drawing a regular flat path, kind of shaping it out to the same shape I have here, and I'm just going to end it here. What I'm going to do, however, is with the same, here I'm going to make it white, and after I make it white now, I go over to my gradient tool, change the colors to, well, white, and I'll just push these guys over. White, 2, and if I'm too lazy to get the other white, I'll just push this white up and put another white here. The other cool thing about these gradients is that you can put transparency on them. So this is white, and the opacity for it is 100, which means it's solid white. If I want to lower it to 0, I get something more like that.
Oh.
And then I can play around with my gradient tool and get something looking, well, like something. Not that way. There we go. Something more like that. And we get this little glossy type thing here. I guess you can barely see it.
It's like a seed.
Yes, it's a seed. Yeah, sometimes you get picky when you're designing stuff. You want it to be just right. So it has that shiny, glossy gradient, and I don't know. You could call it seedling industries or something. I don't know. Okay, and then you can just change around a few things, like the way it looks, and even down here as well are black, 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 and just change that to something light green or something. So it has like this luminescent glow from the bottom coming up. And that's a gradient using the that was just using a regular gradient, right? With the mesh gradient tool. Now you have a blending tool, and I kind of want to show you this one because you can use it to create some really cool looking effects. I think I should show you guys the skit poster. Well, not skit. Where is it?
Really? This one.
Yes.
Why you never get up with the chaos? It's me and brother, you crying, but nobody is. No, the one tick. One tick. Well,
Nope, still open. So if we look at this poster here, I'm just going to show you a little piece of it. Skit Olympics poster. Let me just show you what you can actually use with this blending tool. Now, inside this poster here, I'm going to hide a few layers, which is like a lot of them. I'm going to hide everything. No, just like a couple, probably an hour or so.
That's the original.
This one isn't original, everything else is.
That's not original.
Everything else is original, except that graphic you saw a while ago. I was being lazy.
wow.
I typically don't like using other people's work, but I was under a little constraint there. So if we look at this thing here, not that. This thing, can you see it? It's actually made with and I use the dissolve thing on there. If you look at it normally, it's just a bunch of lines together, but that's not the one I was looking for still. I'm going to show you it. Nope, that was lazy. Moving on, let's just do it. So this is the gradient thing. The other part of it is, and I think I can move my artboard just below it. And by the way, you can create artboards on top of each other. So if I create this artboard and I say, okay, this artboard is a little bit too big, I can always use the artboard tool and move it up and say, that's my gradients one. And then down here, I'm going to use something called, well, down here. I'm going to use the, what they call it now? The blending tool. Now the blending tool actually takes two paths and tries to blend them together. So if, for instance, I'm going to start with just lines. So I'm going to choose a black line. And like I said, even if you don't know how to use the pen tool really nicely, you can create some really, really nice effects with this thing. So I'm going to start with this here being black and definitely solid colored. Don't want any gradients here. So I'll take this tool, I'll start drawing a little random shape kind of thing like that. Yeah, it's coming up. Leave it alone. Right, so I have just a simple curve in one color. I'm going to use another color. I'm going to change the color of it though. Probably something blue. Then I'm going to take this one and draw another line. Something like this. Like so. Yes, that's how I did it. I'm going to change the color of this too a lighter blue. Alright? Now, you can barely see it, though you can see it if we were to look at it. If we were to use the blending tool now, you should just change this to red. Right, so we have a red one, and let me just increase the stroke size. Though having a small stroke size will make the effect look much more awesome. So here's how the blend tool works. It takes one path, another path, and kind of tries to get one path to transition to becoming the other path.
For
So
those of you who did animation, that's like morphing.
there we go, like morphing.
Sir.
So anyway, if we click on the first one, it doesn't matter what order you click on them in. Click one, then click the other one. You get something like that. Hideous looking, but let me show you how it can become.
You guys,
Looks like a flying carpet.
It looks weird right now. I know.
Where's the horse and the head and the tail?
Yeah, it's a seahorse.
Change the positives to everything.
So object. You can always go to object. This time you're going to go to blend, and you have blend options. Now this one tells you smooth color. Essentially what it means is smooth the transition from blue to red with kind of you're not seeing too much difference. But you also have specified steps here. And right now you see 254, which is a lot. If I were to put 1 there, you pretty much get
just one.
one line. And I'm just going to go inside this now and change the line itself. This line is too thick. I'm going to carry it down to 1. I'm going to take this one now and convert it to 1 as well. Well, 1. Now back into my blending options again. Blend options. If I preview it and choose to increase the spacing or number of steps, you'll see like a waveform being created like this, giving you that kind of an effect. Huh? No, I haven't done it yet. No, not just gradient, there's another one. So you guys see this thing? So let's create another one.
You said you were going to do green.
No, I'm going to do transparency. I just need to show you this part because it's a part of gradients as well. Transitioning from one to the next. So 1, another one, P, and I don't like this much, so I'm gonna move this up like so. And then the last bit now, I'm just gonna take a third one and go all squiggly line, like squiggly line, yeah. Then what I can do, same blending thing, I'll just use black to white to black, or black to white to gray or something, black blue to something else. Now first things first, click on one path. You see the multiplication sign first, then you see the plus sign, then you'll get that. Fine. Then if you want to connect another path to it, you click on the same thing here and add the next one. And if we were to go into the blending options again, let's just edit that, increase specify amount of steps, and you get something like that. You can use as something like, I don't know, something.
What's this one?
Right? Like some wireframe thing. Let's say you're doing something for an IT company and they want, you know those.
See, that's delete over again.
Do what over?
Yeah.
Oh no, it's okay. You can watch the video later.
Oh.
So it's gonna be like a huge gigs of stuff. So here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna cut off just right here and start another video. So when you're loading it, this doesn't overwhelm you with like one video. So we'll do part 1, part 2, part 3. Cool. So we're done with this part for now. I'm gonna stop this video. So what we've done so far is the offset, positive, negative. Then we use some gradients to create this, and also the mesh gradients tool. And down here we use the blending tool or blend tool. There we go. Right, class? So this was video 1 of I don't know how much more. So yeah.
Next time when you answer my question, you call me and you're
Okay.
okay, Alan, that's a very good question.
And on that note, I'm pressing stop now.